April 1945. The world is burning. The streets of Berlin echo with gunfire. Smoke rises like ghosts of the fallen, and beneath the ruined city, one man hides in the shadows of his own empire. Adolf Hitler, the dictator who promised 1,000 years of glory, now counts the final hours of his life. The walls tremble. His generals have betrayed him, and his dream of domination lies buried under rubble and ashes. This is the story of the last day of Hitler, a moment when power, madness, and fate collided in one final act of destruction. What really happened in those last 24 hours? How did the man who started the deadliest war in history meet his end? Stay till the end, because this is the fall of the Führer, the end of World War II. Berlin, April 30th, 1945. The city that once stood as the pride of the Third Reich is now a crumbling inferno. Allied artillery rains down like thunder, and the sky, once filled with the roar of Luftwaffe planes, now trembles under Soviet bombs. Beneath the shattered capital, deep inside a cold concrete labyrinth known as the Führerbunker, Adolf Hitler faces the end he has feared but never admitted. His empire lies in ruins. His allies are gone, and his soldiers, the once unstoppable Wehrmacht, are either dead, captured, or fleeing through the ruins of the Reich. The man who promised a empire now has hours left to live. Inside the bunker, the air is thick with smoke, despair, and betrayal. Every corridor echoes with footsteps, whispers, and the distant rumble of explosions. Hitler's closest circle, Joseph Goebbels, his wife Magda, Eva Braun, and a few remaining officers move like ghosts, their faces pale and eyes hollow. The walls vibrate from shellfire as Soviet troops close in. Even in his final hours, Hitler refuses to flee. He tells his staff, "I will not leave Berlin. I will not fall into enemy hands. My fate will be here, in the capital of the Reich." Those words seal his destiny. 4 days, Hitler has lived in denial. He still believes some miracle will turn the tide, that General Wenck's army will rescue Berlin, that the Western Allies will fight the Soviets, that destiny will save him. But every radio message brings only bad news. Cities are gone. Commanders are surrendering. Even Heinrich Himmler, one of his most loyal men, has betrayed him, secretly trying to negotiate peace with the Allies. When Hitler hears this, he explodes in rage, shouting that Himmler will pay with his life. The illusion of loyalty shatters completely. Everyone knows the Third Reich is finished out in the final hours. Hitler tries to maintain a sense of control. He dictates his last political testament, blaming the Jews, the military, and the German people for his downfall. His words are no longer those of a leader. They're the desperate ramblings of a man lost in delusion. He marries Eva Braun in a quiet ceremony inside the bunker. They drink cheap champagne, smile weakly, and pretend for a moment that the world outside isn't collapsing. Eva is calm, loyal to the end. She could have fled, but she chose to die beside him. To her, this isn't tragedy. It's devotion above ground. Berlin is a hellscape. Soviet soldiers fight street by street, building by building. Civilians run through the smoke, terrified. Children of the Hitler Youth still try to defend the ruins with rifles far too heavy for their arms. The once proud Nazi flags hang torn and burning. In the bunker, Hitler listens to reports of advancing Soviet troops. They are now less than 500 meters away. He knows the Red Army will storm the Chancellery at any moment. His mind flickers between paranoia and clarity. "The war is lost," he mutters. "But if my death has any meaning, it will be an example to those who come after." As night falls, silence begins to replace chaos. Some staff prepare to escape through underground tunnels. Others burn documents. Hitler calls his secretaries one last time, shaking their hands and thanking them for their loyalty. They weep silently, unable to speak. At 3:30 p.m., he retreats to his private room with Eva Braun. Outside the door, the guards stand rigid, knowing what comes next. Minutes later, a sharp crack of a pistol echoes through the bunker. Eva drinks. Cyanide. Hitler shoots himself. The most feared man in the world is dead. His body, alongside Eva's, is carried outside through the emergency exit into the ruined garden of the Reich Chancellery. Shells burst in the distance as gasoline is poured over their corpses. Flames rise into the gray sky. The dictator who once set the world on fire now burns in his own ashes. Inside the bunker, silence spreads, a heavy, suffocating silence. The end of an era has come, not with triumph or glory, but with despair and destruction. The 1,000-year Reich has lasted only 12. When the news of Hitler's death reaches the surface, confusion turns to disbelief. Many refuse to believe it at first. Rumors spread across the ruins of Berlin. Some say he escaped. Others say the Soviets captured him. But as Soviet soldiers stormed the bunker, they find the truth. The Führer is gone. Joseph Goebbels, the ever-loyal propaganda minister, refuses to live in a world without Hitler. That same night, he and his wife poison their 6 children, then take their own lives. The nightmare that began with promises of glory ends with the murder of innocents. Outside, the Soviet flag rises over the Reichstag. Red smoke fills the air as the hammer and sickle wave above the ruins of Nazi Germany. For the first time in 12 years, Berlin is no longer under the swastika. The war in Europe is effectively over. Soldiers who once shouted Heil Hitler now surrender in silence. Across the continent, concentration camps are liberated, revealing horrors beyond imagination. Skeleton-like survivors stumble from the gates, free but broken. The world begins to see the true face of the regime that promised greatness and delivered genocide. In the weeks that follow, Allied forces officially confirm Hitler's death. His body is never fully recovered, only burnt remains, identified later by dental fragments. Stalin at first hides the information, letting the myth of Hitler's escape spread for political gain. Some believe he fled to Argentina or lived in secret exile, but in truth, there was no escape. The man who dreamed of conquering the world couldn't even conquer his own fear. He chose death over capture. A coward's exit dressed his loyalty to his cause. The fall of Hitler marks not just the end of a war, but the collapse of an idea, the myth of absolute power. His empire, built on lies, hate, and fear, crumbles in days. Millions are dead, cities turn to dust, and Europe lies in ruins. The Nuremberg Trials soon begin, bringing the surviving Nazi leaders to justice. One by one, they face judgment for crimes that scarred humanity. I was just following orders, they claim, but the world no longer accepts that excuse. For the first time in history, the world sees evil not as destiny, but as a choice, that in the shadows of this destruction, Germany begins a painful rebirth. The people who once chanted Hitler's name now face the guilt of his madness. The world moves on, but never forgets. Books, films, and testimonies ensure that his story and his fall remain eternal warnings. The bunker becomes a symbol, not of power, but of downfall. A reminder that tyranny always ends in ruin, and that even the most feared men are still mortal. Hitler's last day is more than just the death of one man. It's the death of an illusion. The illusion that hate can build an empire. The illusion that fear can control the world. History shows us that dictators rise on promises, but always fall to truth. His final hours weren't marked by victory speeches or parades, but by silence, despair, and self-destruction. And that silence still echoes in every city scarred by bombs, in every survivor's eyes, in every lesson taught about the dangers of blind obedience. In that cold, dim bunker, Hitler finally faced something he could not conquer. Time itself. His empire vanished, his name forever tied to evil, his dream reduced to ashes. Outside, the sun rose again over a broken Europe, a dawn that symbolized both the end and the beginning. The world would rebuild, nations would rise again, and humanity, wounded but alive, would promise never to repeat the same darkness. The war that started with arrogance ended with a whisper. The man who wanted to rule the world died underground, alone, defeated by the very chaos he unleashed. History closed the book on Adolf Hitler that day, but opened a new one for humanity. A story not of conquest, but of remembrance. Because in remembering the fall, we protect the future from ever walking that same path again.